Hey everyone, this is Locke Outdoors, and I'm going to do something a little different today. I am going to do a gear review on a piece of a kit that I own, and I just want everybody to know that this is a piece of kit that I purchased on my own. It's not sponsored by anyone, no one sent it to me. It is my own kit, and I will be brutally and openly honest about this particular piece. Now, I am not a knife person. I don't know that much about knives. I just know that certain knives I like and certain knives I don't like. So in my review, and based on my own personality, I will tell you how I feel about it more so than I will about talking about particular stats. Because anyone can read out stats. I'm not here to talk about stats. I'm here to talk about how this knife feels when I use it. So we are going to talk about Buck's or Buck Knives 104 Compadre Camp Knife. This is the Buck 104 right here. And I will say it is a very good knife. I do like it. I have used it extensively since I got it earlier this spring, actually earlier winter of this year. Now this knife I have used to clean animals. I've used this knife to cook with. I've used this as a basic utility knife around the camp. And yeah, it is exactly what Buck Knives advertise this knife to be. It is a overall camp knife. It is 5160 spring steel. It is a full tang. It has a micarta handle. The blade length is 4.5 inches, I believe, offhand. I can't quite remember, but it was roughly 4.5 inches. And I know that the overall length of the knife is 21 centimeters, or 20.1 centimeters, roughly. Now, a couple of features about this knife that I really like. Number one, it's a drop point. Okay. There is a Cerakote coating that's over this. It's bonded to the metal, and it provides excellent resistance to rusting. It also adds to the strength of it. I do like the fact that it comes with a place to put a lanyard if you want to put a lanyard, so that's really good to have. And it has a nice little groove on the top of the blade there on the back on the spine for your thumb. And I like that. That really helps out, especially when you're wearing gloves. So overall, it's a very good knife in this aspect. One of the things about this knife that it's good to note that it's relatively balanced. You know, most of the weight right about there is in the handle. All right, so there's more weight back here than it is in the blade itself. And that allows really good dexterity when you're working around the camp and you're doing more finer detail type of jobs. Now, the drawback of that in its design is that the one thing that this knife is not the best at is chopping. When you're trying to chop out limbs and take stuff off a tree, it does the job, but it causes a lot more fatigue in my hands because of the way the weight is. I just can't follow through with a slash or a cut for chopping because most of the weight's in the handle, so I got to put more force into it, and that causes your hands and your wrists to fatigue a little bit faster. Now, in a small video down below here somewhere, you will see that you're quite capable of starting up a spark off a ferro rod, which is good to know. So the clear coating or the Cerakote that's on this still allows for a ferro rod, but is not as potent as you might think. So you can get a spark, but it's not as strong as it would be if it was just bare steel off the striker. Now, this knife is very capable and very strong. As you can see, it's a fairly thick blade, 0.015 inches, I think. That's what it said on the website. I'm not sure what that is in millimeters. I would say is roughly 3 or 4 millimeters in thickness. So it is a very good blade. Now, the one thing and the biggest issue I have with this knife is not the knife itself. It's actually the sheath that it comes in. The sheath, let me show you, is just a standard black leather sheath with a single clasp over the top like that. And it has a plastic insert to allow to protect the leather. So the knife itself is fairly stable. All right, it stays in the sheath fairly well. I've had issues in the past where a branch or a twig has caught this and popped it open, but the knife has stayed in it. The issue I have is actually how it's attached. The belt loop itself on this sheath, I think, is very poorly constructed. I don't trust it, and I'm always worried that it's going to come out. So, if you do decide to get a 104, I would strongly recommend looking at a sheath. Perhaps if you are you're familiar with making your own knife sheaths, I would recommend that you do that because I do not trust that sheath at all. Of all the things that Buck Knife could have done, is they put a great knife into a crappy sheath. And I've actually had instances where this knife was actually hooked, and because of the way it's so floppy on the belt, it flipped upside down, and because of going over a branch or over a log, and the knife has fallen out. And it's only because that someone was behind me walking that they saw it come out that I actually noticed that it fell out. So that's the only issue I have with the whole entire setup. So this knife is really good for, let's see if I can set this up. As you can see, this knife has a really good edge on it. It can make feather sticks quite well. And this knife is actually really good for the baton. I find that it's pretty sturdy enough to last. As you can see, it can baton through a branch quite quickly. And we'll take something a little bigger and we'll try this one. So as you can see, it's a fairly substantial piece of wood that's on this. I'm going to go this way. So let's see. So this is the Buck 104 Compadre camp knife. A really good knife to have. It's overall, if I was to rank this knife out of 10, with 10 being the best, 0 being the worst, I would certainly give this knife an 8. Actually, no, I would give it a 9, simply because it's so versatile in what it can do. Again, the chopping aspect of this knife, because it's not a blade, because it's not a blade forward or heavy forward knife, the chopping is not the best. You can do it, but it takes energy and it can tire your arm out quite a bit. When it comes to debarking trees, I find that it can do it quite well. Fairly quickly, but again, the one task that this knife is not perfectly designed for is chopping and probably debarking, simply because of the design of the blade itself, because it's not a heavy forward end. Now they have, I know Buck Knife has a partner to this knife. It's more of a chopper and is designed for debarking and batoning. And I think what they did was, we'll make this kind of like an overall knife that can do just about everything, but they sacrificed the chopping ability and they put it into their other Compadre knife design that they have. It's like a longer chopper type of knife. But yeah, this is the Buck 104. It's a very good knife. The only thing I wish that more of a vanity thing is that the stenciling on the side, as you can see, right there, same as up here, it has worn off relatively quickly. But yes, the Buck 104 Compadre, I recommend this knife. I would use this knife for just about everything except for chopping and debarking trees. I have another knife that I carry with me specifically for that purpose. But in a pinch, it can do everything. It just can't do everything well, but it can do some other things really good. Great camp knife, great to have on your belt. Recommend getting a better way of securing it with a better sheath. And I wish Buck Knife would listen to me and make a better sheath for this, because it's quite easy to lose in the sheath that it's currently in my opinion. But yeah, Buck 104 Compadre. This is my gear review. Nothing fancy. I like it. Go buy it if you want it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. All right, guys. Locke outdoors. Stay safe. Take it easy.